Embiid stepping back and stroking two. Bogdanovich thinking about a three. There it is. Yes!
See it again. No double team help, and Embiid takes it right to the rack.
Embiid, step back, jumper, you bet!
There he is again. The Euro step there. Embiid getting Gobert in a fight.
What's going on, everybody? A new week, a new episode of the Feed to Embiid. I am your host, as always, the always on time, the always clean shaven and good haired Austin Krell, along with my buddy wearing game headphones, Ky Carlin. Ky, it's been a while. How are we?
I'm all right, man. I've been rocking with the gaming headset when it comes to my recording ventures. So it does feel like it sounds a little bit better.
There we go. So, Ky, we do have a lot to talk about today. I want to start out with this. So this morning I'm at work. My dad walks into my room and he's like, Austin, Ky Carlin wrote this story about Doc Rivers saying that Ben, don't worry about Ben's. I don't worry about Ben scoring, and I was like, yeah, okay. He was like, but he didn't cite you as using the quote. He didn't say that. That question was asked by Austin Krell. I was like, do you ever see me do that with my quotes? And he was like, no. I was like, because we don't. It's not what you do. You don't have to cite the reporter. You just say it. That's what Doc said. And he was like, all right. I don't want him taking advantage of you. I'm like, he's not taking advantage of me. So I was just trying to explain it. He was so taken aback that you didn't say to Austin Krell's question. Try to explain how it works.
Here's the thing, though. My mom did the same thing a couple years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I had to explain it to my mom. Yeah, listen, we don't attribute who asked the question. You know what I'm saying? So I had to explain that to my mom too. So I get it.
But it's just hilarious to me because my dad's never met you, but the two occasions that he knows of you, one, you crashed in the back of my car. And the other one, he in his mind, stealing the quote that I got from Doc, which I think is just he thinks you're the worst.
Damn it, man! I'm the worst person in the world.
Oh my god, it's too good. So we do have a lot to jump into today. We're going to start off with, I think, a topic that's near and dear to everybody's hearts, and that's going to be the return of Joel Embiid. And obviously, everyone's aside from the wins, the only thing people care about is where is Joel? Well, is he breathing? Is he alive? Is he ingesting food? Is his heart beating?
Right.
And we confirmed that it is indeed beating. He comes back to the court on Saturday. It was against the Timberwolves. I think they're better. They have a little bit more heart now and a little bit more fight. Still not very good at all.
Yeah, they're not.
But they did give a little more fight. It also helped that Karl Towns is back in the lineup. That always helps you. But from Embiid in that game, what did you see there?
I saw rust, as I'm sure you did as well. It's just Joel, first game back, missed 10 games. 24 points and 8 rebounds is honestly better than what I was expecting. Just because it is a knee injury, he's going up against Cat, and the fact that I expected the rust that he did have. So overall, I thought it was a good game. He had a couple of really bad turnovers in the fourth quarter, but other than that, it was a solid game. And then obviously he sat out Sunday's loss to Memphis, but that was to be expected. It was a solid game overall for him.
Yeah, for sure. I thought I guess I was in a sense disillusioned a little bit with what I thought you would see out of him. Like I thought, I was thinking like it wouldn't shock me if people are like the first thing people think after the game is like, oh my God, is he okay? Because like that he's just that slow coming back. I mean, which think about it, like in theory, according to like the doctors that I've mentioned this to, it's supposed to be non-weight bearing activity. So it's really impossible to keep your conditioning up unless you're like doing water aerobics a ton, which maybe he was. I don't know. But like, it's really going to be hard to maintain your basketball playing shape while you're out with this whole, scenario with the bone bruise on the left knee. So I was like, okay, he's just trying to get his feet back under him, clean up the footwork a little bit. And really to sort of get back to speed. Ky, I do have someone here I want you to meet.
Oh God.
Dad, this is a live podcast. This is Ky Carlin.
Hey, Ky, how you doing?
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
I read your work. I saw it the other day. I saw it. What was it, last night? You were talking about Doc said, "Don't worry about Ben's offense. No big deal. We don't care about his offense." I saw that. Yeah. How you doing? All right?
I'm really good, Mr. Curl. How about you?
Good. I'm doing well. Keeping this boy and trying to keep him in shape, you know?
Oh my God.
I hear that. I hear that for sure.
All right,
guys. I'll see you.
now
Take
that we
care.
clean the air, that is the man who fathered me, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Krell.
Oh,
That's legend. This guy's a legend right there. The guy's an athlete.
Oh no.
So anyway, podcast's never been better. Right there. That's the peak of what we do here. So I was expecting Joel to really just be trying to get his feet back under him in that game. I thought like the way he came out early, number one, he's getting on the floor. And he's diving, he's not afraid of contact. And I thought that was like, it's commendable. I appreciate it, but I also think there's got to be a balance between like, okay, I'm going to risk it here versus like, I'm not trying to miss another 2 weeks. I'll let this one go. Which I mean, I get like how that reads to like the fans, but I also think it doesn't really matter what you do in the regular season if you're not able to play in the playoffs. Like if you're missing time in the playoffs because you're nursing a knee or a back or whatever, or an ankle, is it really worth risking it against the Timberwolves on a Saturday night when you just came back from injury? No.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a lot of people really don't understand that. I feel like everybody's kind of like, oh, if he's healthy to go, why can't he just go? And it's like, no. Like, listen, you need to manage a lot of this stuff. And listen, when I had a tweet, somebody tweeted at me yesterday when Joel was announced that he wasn't going to play against Memphis. And somebody was like, oh my God, is he okay? Like, is he all right? Should we be worried about this? And it's like, it's the second game of a back-to-back. Of course he's not going to play. Like, use your brain.
When Doc said we're going to be conservative, it didn't surprise me at all. But
right.
If you like just think about, like, okay, so this is a game where it's like the Sunday, they travel Monday, then they have the Celtics in Boston. And Doc, from the very beginning of the season, if you think back to it, Doc says, what really matters is winning as many conference games as you can in your conference games. Not only is this a conference game, this is a division game.
Right.
So we're just trying to win the division, win the conference, whatever. And so if you like it really was shouldn't have been a shocker to anybody that Doc says, no, we're just gonna let him go against, if he doesn't, we're gonna sit him tonight. He'll get another extra day off with the travel. Then we go to Boston where he's going to have to play because we got to win that game in Boston. So, I mean, it really isn't it wasn't surprising, although I'm sure it was disappointing to some. But I mean, you understand why it happened. Of course, we do at least.
Right. It was simple.
But yeah, but I mean, in that Minnesota game, so I was impressed with, number one, his speed and his timing. I thought his timing wasn't a lot to. That you're like, wow, this is like, he's really off here. I mean, he was baiting guys into contact. Now, granted, that Minnesota team's really young. They're not a good defensive team by any stretch. Their only method at times of defending the basket was just to foul and get him to the free throw line. So, I mean, they did a lot of that. I thought overall he responded well to contact. He responded well in the face of what the defense was showing him. Again, you are right. The turnovers were a little bit ugly at times. There were a couple times where the blind side was exposed and a guy would run in from behind, take the ball away, and get in transition, which was in the moment problematic. But I think long term he'll get back to where he was. But one thing that that I wasn't too surprised by, but then kind of like recovered a little bit, was he was getting beat to the rim by Cat a couple times. There were some times where Cat would like cut off ball and beat Joel to the rim,
Definitely.
or like explode right and get to the rim. And then he had trouble getting back and rejecting the shot because for obvious reasons. But then when Anthony Edwards did it a couple times in the fourth quarter, they're both very young, but a younger, maybe a little bit more nimble on his feet because he's smaller, forward/wing. Joel was able to block a shot twice at the rim. So I thought like Joel progressed throughout the game, which I think is kind of rare.
And I feel like that's something good that you want to see, though, because I mean, I feel like maybe in the beginning he was a little too amped up. It was his first game back after the 10 games. It was also his first game back in front of the Philadelphia fans this year. And then when he went onto the floor for the first time, the game didn't even start yet, and he was already getting MVP chance. I mean, as soon as he walked on, and at Wells Fargo Center, they were blaring that "Wicked" song from Future that like they play every time he scores, and I mean like, yeah, exactly that one. And he told me the fans gave him a standing ovation as soon as he walked out on the court for pregame warmups. So I feel like he was just maybe just a little too juiced, a little too amped up. He tried to maybe do a little bit too much early. I think his first bucket was a two-handed dunk. That just kind of began setting him forward a little bit. And then, as you mentioned, Austin, he really did kind of begin to progress a little bit more as the game went on. In terms of the fouling that Minnesota did, I feel like every team fouls the hell out of Joel. I think he goes to the free throw line like how many times? Like 13, 14 times a game. So. There's not much a team like the Timberwolves can really do against Joel. It would have been better to have him, I think, maybe against Memphis, just because of Jonas Valanciunas and Brandon Clark. And obviously, without Joel, they destroyed Mike Scott and Dwight Howard down low. But you mentioned it earlier. Have him play against Minnesota. Sit out Sunday. Sit out Monday. Boston Tuesday. So it makes a lot more sense.
Yep. I also think like they kind of. I mean. Obviously, like Shams is just a reporter, but I think when someone leaks to Shams, they coming back Saturday, you're kind of like, well, damn, now we gotta bring him back Saturday. Like once Shams put out there, it's sort of like it's locked in. Which I mean, it's you're the organization, you have the control, but also it's like if Shams feels slighted in the future, he might not, he might not feel so inclined to like. Be your source to the information around the league, which I think is definitely at play with these insider types. Now, let's go over to Sunday. So I think the thing that has most impressed me about Tobias this year, I wrote about it a little bit last night. And I think this is also like a function of confidence as are most things. And by that, I mean, like, I think it's always been there for him. I just think that he's been hesitant to use it out of fear of failure, but he's been way, way better and way more resilient in the face of adversity in the lane this season. And I feel like he's done really good at, he's been really, adept at not only getting downhill and getting to the rim, but also leveraging his size and his muscle and his body to like, I'm going to power through this and I'm just going to bank this off the glass and get it in. There have been times here where he's finished right, he's finished left, and usually he favors like that little horns play going to the left side of the court. But I thought, last night was a testament to it, but really for the most part this season, he's been able to finish on either side of the rim.
Yeah, honestly, I saw there was one move last night against Valanciunas. He drove into the lane. I think he kind of used his body to bump off Valanciunas a little bit, create a little bit of space. But because Valanciunas is so tall and he's got such a wingspan, it was a tough shot. And Tobias kind of leaned back and just banked it off the backboard and he nailed the shot. And honestly, it was just really impressive to me. And just his Tobias's, I want to say, efficiency all season long. I mean, I think he's shooting 50, 40, and then 89.9% from the free throw line. So like if he can get that back up over 90, he'd only be the 9th player in NBA history to finish with 50, 40, 90. And I mean, he has been terrific all season long. And I kind of was just talking about this earlier. Normally when Joel goes out, you would think you would turn to Ben to kind of be the offensive guy. But instead, it has 100% been Tobias. I mean, for the majority of this season.
Yeah. And I think, we're obviously running into that. That's like a big storyline, but I think he was at 90%, like 90.2% from the free throw line.
He was
before last game, and then he missed one.
Yeah.
And then now he dropped below it again. But I mean, that's a hard club to maintain. It's a really hard club to maintain. And I think his 3-point volume is gone down a little bit because my guess is he probably knows it, that he's that close, and he doesn't do too many of them because the more he takes, the more he can miss.
Right.
But I think he's shooting like 3 or 4 a game right now, which isn't too bad. But now we go over to the elephant in the room. And that's going to be Ben Simmons. Now, I think this is a good way to segue into that. It's Yaj, who's in Australia. He says, which was worse, the game versus Denver or the Grizz? Both of those were stink fests. Both of those were horrendous ball games. Now, you make a good point. I think the Grizz game was worse because, number one, it's at home. Number two, you don't have the altitude thing that you can beat into the ground as an excuse. And number three,
sure.
And then number three, the Grizz, the Nuggets are good. They're a very good basketball team. Grizzlies not so much.
I'm going to say Denver because they had 2 days off before that game. So I mean, sure, altitude. Yeah. I mean, sure, altitude, but they played the Clippers Saturday. They were off that Sunday. They were off that Monday, and then they played Denver the Tuesday. So I mean, they had 2 days off going into that game, and the starters, they just completely came out flat, completely flat, and it was just like dang, what the hell? To give up 44 points in the first quarter, Denver, very good team. I think they could, with the moves they made, I think they could make another Western Conference Finals run at least. That's a very good team, but they also had 2 days off. With Memphis, they just came back from a 6-game road trip. They played Minnesota the night before at 8:00. Had to turn around and play Memphis at 7:00. And also no Joel. It was just kind of that was, I expected that. Denver, I didn't expect.
Okay. You make an interesting point. 2 days off, definitely. There's no excuse for being tired like that. I generally, you gotta tell you, I wrote about it last night. I think that the excuse we're tired, we're fatigued, that doesn't play for me. It doesn't play.
Agreed.
These guys are pros. They know they have to play 72 to 82 games depending on the year, and everyone has to play the same teams, same number of games. There's no guess what? Everyone's tired. Everyone's got injuries. Everyone's nursing something. Everyone's on a road trip. Everyone's struggling with their game, what have you. Everyone's tired. That's not an excuse. You need to give more energy than they gave last night. Certainly more than what they gave in the Denver game. But that's besides, that's another conversation. Now, Ben Simmons. You gotta get to Ben Simmons. Boy, oh boy, it has not been fun for him recently. It's been a major struggle. He's now, I think he's shooting below 50% from the field since the All-Star break, I believe, from over his last X number of games. And I think the pattern with him is he's aggressive early. He's pushing the pace early. He's beating everybody to the basket early in games. And then after that first rotation out, he's becoming extraordinarily passive and he's not really attacking the rim. But I think I have a theory as to what it is, but I'm curious to see what you think, what you're saying there.
I'm not really sure. I mean, like I feel like it's the same thing we've seen with him throughout his entire career. It's like he continues to just be really, really passive for like no reason. It's like man, you are a 6'10" beast. Like you got size over everybody. You are a skilled basketball player. You have a variety of ways to finish. But yet, honestly, I think Jason mentioned this a lot on this podcast too. He tries to go up with like these cute finishes, as rather than like going up with just authority and just throwing it down. And and that's why I asked Doc the other night after the Minnesota game, because he mentioned that the team was missing some point blank shots, and I asked him, I said, okay, well, are you trying to tell Ben to dunk it? And he goes, well, I do that. But then like there are other times where it's like I don't know if Ben's listening to you, man. I don't know if he is, because there are too many times he doesn't go up with authority. Now you mentioned it before. He starts off the game like that. Sunday against the Grizzlies, I think he had 3 dunks like in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Just to score his 6 points, like that's good. But then he just stopped doing it, and it's like man, like are you hurt? Like are you still hurt? Because remember, he missed the game against Sacramento. Yeah. Are you still feeling the effects of that or something? But he's really been passive for the majority of his career, to be completely honest with you. And honestly, like in a stretch like this, it can get tiring to watch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get there a while. You're just like, all right, like I've seen this act enough times. I know what this is.
Right.
I know how the story ends, and I think ultimately, if the team doesn't go far enough this season, I think they will have gotten tired of it, of the whole act too. And I think that's when you might see an ending to this whole thing. But we'll approach that bridge when we get there.
Right.
I think like you and I talked about this, and I've been very much in this corner. There have been games when he's been the best player on the floor, and he never even so much as thinks about attempting a jump shot. Doesn't even throw a pump fake, and he's the best player on the floor throughout an entire game against good teams. There were times last season he would never even think about attempting jumpers, and he was the best player on the floor. And it'd be against like Kawhi, against like Paul George, LeBron, what have you. But it's this passiveness that it's come to a new level now, where he is not only passive, but he just leaves everything short. The easy finishes at the rim are not so easy anymore. And he is just like, he gets to the rim, he gets fouled, and he just make the layup, make the dunk, and he how many times in the past week have we seen like he gets to the rim, gets fouled, and then misses the layup,
right?
And you see his reaction, like he's pissed at himself, like you see him, he'll go like fuck, or he'll like smack, like he'll dribble the ball and aggressively and be mad at himself, but like. I just don't get why he's not taking that extra step, because like I don't see what would hinder him in doing that. Like you've already got there, you're already at the rim. Just take the extra step and create a little bit more like gravity for yourself and go up there and just slam it. And I'm kind of wondering if like maybe he's now like a little bit afraid of the free throw line, because he has been regressing a little bit lately from there. But I think what it comes down to is this. When in the past, when Joel missed extended period of time when Ben was a rookie, he went on that tear end of the season, and that was when they had Ersan Ilyasova playing a lot of minutes at the 5 spot. Yeah, that's 5.
Yeah.
His the second season in the league with Jimmy, it was sort of a revolving door of backup bigs, but like
right.
He was generally fine. Plus, you had Jimmy there to be the lead guy. Didn't really matter because Ben could just be his Batman, or his Robin to Jimmy's Batman.
Right.
Last season when Joel missed extended time, you have Horford there. I think what we can't neglect in all of this, the common trend is the backup big man has been huge with Ben Simmons in the lineup, because you have to have, as a big man on this group, in this team, if you're going to play with Ben Simmons, to have that gravity to lift your defender out of the paint, and that way Ben gets eyes for the rim. That's when when he knows that the big man the big man isn't there to like help, or that they can't really sag, and that he can just take a guy one-on-one, he gets a little bit excited and he goes.
Right.
This year with Dwight in the lineup, there's no credibility there to like bring a big out of the paint. There's no one there to like lift the helper away from the rim and leave the one-on-one man against Ben.
Right.
And Tony Bradley wasn't a shooter really either, but the numbers don't lie. The two-man grouping of Ben and Tony Bradley, I think, scored 108 points per 100 possessions. With the two-man grouping with Dwight is scoring 99 per 100. So they're averaging less than a point per 100 possessions.
And like, listen, like Mike Scott's not much better. You know what I'm saying? Like when Scott's go out there,
he's not. And then I also think that it causes Ben to have to assert himself a little bit more defensively because Mike Scott isn't like this big PJ Tucker type body that's gonna like be effective on the defensive side of the floor. But even then, defenses are still willing to gamble on Scott making a three, and it means they remove the Ben Simmons threat. They wall him off in the paint.
Right.
I don't think it's like any kind of like weird like coincidence that for the first time we're seeing that Ben and Joel not only work better together, but Ben needs Joel right now because Joel's lifting that defender out of the paint away from the rim and is giving Ben space to operate. That's just kind of what I see, but I do agree with you. They say he's healthy. Everything I've heard says he's healthy. But I don't know because he missed the Sacramento game. Then he, and in this entire time frame, he's been basically number one, number two with Joel out. So he misses the game with knee soreness, and then then he has this slump that he's in.
Right.
If he's injured, just say he's injured. Like it's okay. Like it happens. It's part of the gig. But it's impossible to like tolerate at this point that he's missing these shots at the rim. He's not aggressive. I mean, we're getting to a point where there was like a play against like I think Jordan McLaughlin, who's 5'9" or 5'11.
And he faded away.
Fades away. He fades away. And he has Jordan McLaughlin in the paint. He has him on the block, and he fades away. The hook shots aren't falling anymore. The floaters aren't falling. He's fading away against smaller matchups.
That's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, no, you can't have that. And I get like offensive fouls are going to happen. You got to leverage your size. You're 6'10", 6'11". You're strong as all hell. You're built like a damn bull, whatever the word is, whatever the animal is. Go get yourself 2 points. Go
right.
Muscle your way to that rim and score over Jordan McLaughlin.
Right.
You can't have that.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I think, you know what, I know Doc always says, oh, I'm not worried about his jump shot, or, oh, I'm not worried about him scoring. But I think at the back of his mind, like come playoff time, you can get away with that in round one when you got to take on the Charlotte Hornets or something like that. But in round two, like when you got to take on a much tougher opponent, like say, the Miami Heat, or taking on, depending on the seeding, the Milwaukee Bucks round two or something like that, Ben is going to have to freaking score next to Joel. Like you are not going to beat those teams with just Joel. We saw it in 2018 against Boston. We saw it in 2019 against Toronto. How many times in that Toronto series was Jimmy Butler pleading in the media for Ben to attack and for Ben to be aggressive? I mean, like there were so many times where Jimmy was like, yo, I'm telling him, attack. We need you. Go. And he never did, except for I think maybe game 6 of that series. I think he had a really good game 6, but that was it in terms of his attacking. And just like that, there are too many times where it's like, dude, as you mentioned, Austin, you're 6'10", you're built huge. Go get yourself a bucket. You can do it. and he just won't do it. And I think it gets more unsettling, Austin, when the games when Joel is out, because when Joel is out, everybody says the Sixers have 2 stars, right? Everybody says Sixers have 2 all-stars. Ben is that second all-star. You need to prove. You need to be the guy to take on the brunt of the offensive responsibility and lead the way. And instead, it's been Tobias all season long. Like I've always said, Tobias should have been an all-star this year. I said it from the jump.
You should. I think if you had repolled the people who selected, they probably would have said we should have gone Tobias Harris over Ben Simmons.
Right.
Or Tobias Harris over like Domantas Sabonis.
I would have taken Tobias over Nikola Vucevic. That's just me.
Ooh, okay. But I at least now it makes sense though why like he's doing it without why he's struggling without Joel. I think it actually makes sense that it's not happening because bottom line, dude won't shoot. He just won't shoot, and they don't have a credible shooting big to literally yank defenders out of the paint, and then he kind of gets stocked up, like I said. So I do understand why that happens, but the main issue that I have, like when you'll see him, like he'll put on the Jets, he'll attack the middle of the lane. He stops at the nail. Like you see the foot just stop at the nail, turns and pivots, and then passes out of it. I'm like, bro, did the controller die?
Every time.
The battery, the run too low. Like, why are you stopping at the nail and pivoting and passing out of it? Like, you're in the post against a smaller guy, and then you're kicking the Danny Green for threes. I mean, and don't get me wrong. Like, Danny Green's been awesome for them, but
you're 6'10".
Yeah, like, what are we talking about here? Now, Matt McGinty says, sounds like you guys are giving up, making me upset. I have long been a big, I see the big picture with Ben Simmons. And Ky and I have texted oftentimes how we can't stand the fan base because they're very irrational. I'm not giving up on Ben Simmons. I think Ben Simmons is a phenomenal player. I think he's the top 20 player in the league. He's in a slump right now. But I think the fact that
we've seen this too many times.
It isn't like the guy shooting 35-foot shots and is having a slump. He only shoots around the rim. It's kind of hard to understand how he'd have a slump. But I get it. I get where you're coming from totally. But I also think that it's so short-sighted and just kind of like lacking dimensional thinking. If you like just put him in a vacuum and say like, okay, it's just him in the basket. Why can't he finish the layup?
Right.
No, there's
a lot of factors.
There's a second or third defender there who it's making it very difficult. I mean, listen, you go to like rec league games, you go to college games, dudes turn the ball over when they have a second or third help defender there to shut the lane down. It's not easy when you have guys that are in the NBA who they have trainers and they have coaches say like, yo, if you see this guy, like he goes up for it and slap the ball, just slap down the ball, knock it free. Last night, a couple times, Ben goes up for a layup or a dunk or whatever, loses it on the way up and it's turnover because the Grizzlies know to slap the ball free. And that, I mean, you can have strong hands, you can go up, but you can go as hard as you can to the rim. That just happens sometimes. Sometimes the ball just gets slapped away and you lose control. It happens to guys all the time. It's how a lot of times when LeBron turns the ball over in crunch time, he loses it off his foot or off his knee because it gets knocked out of his hands. He attacks the rim. That's just part of the game. That's how teams defend you. But the thing that is intolerable, number one, it does feel like his like the defense, like his slump has sort of leaked into his defense a little bit. I think his intensity on that end of the floor hasn't been great recently. And if he's not gonna if they're not making a ton of shots, or if he's not gonna score a ton of points, you gotta be getting 10, 12 assists per game, which I think in some ways isn't necessarily his fault that he isn't, because I mean in the games when Joel's out, they're shooting 40% from the field. They just, without Joel to swallow up double teams, they just don't get a lot of shots that are open. And I think that makes things difficult. But for me, the one thing that you just need him to do is stopping at the nail. And not only is that on Ben Simmons to get over that fear and to get over whatever is stopping him there, but it's also on Doc Rivers and the coaching staff to put him in the right lineups, put him in the right positions to score those buckets. If they give Paul Reed more minutes, I think as a 5, even if they don't think he's ready, that's more of a credible shooting big than Dwight Howard is. It's going to lift the defender out of the paint.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm still not on board with the whole let's throw Paul Reed in there right now. I'm not on board with it. I'm not like listen, okay. Everybody loves B-ball Paul. I love B-ball Paul too. I think he's a great kid. I think he's got a great future, and I think Paul Reed can be like the backup to Joel very soon. Not right now. Like absolutely not right now. And I mean, this everybody's like, "Oh my God, Mike Scott, why is he out there?" Well, it's for the simple fact that Scott is a veteran, and even though he's clearly undersized as a center, at least he understands like where he has to be on the defensive end of the floor. He's just undersized, and Valanciunas killed him because he's small. But I mean, Mike Scott is the clear choice to start when Joel is out because, as you mentioned, you can't have Dwight with Ben. And I think, and Doc finally realized that earlier in the year, you can't have Dwight and Ben on the floor together. So, honestly, as terrible as Mike Scott has been this year, he for me, he is the clear cut, easy choice to start at center when Joel can't go. It makes the most sense. You don't give Paul Reed those times right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think if Mike Scott weren't like having just like Space Jam type progression, I think there is a will case that maybe they re-sign him this summer. But I think
there's no way.
I think that would be blown out of the water if he's ever in the uniform for the Sixers ever again.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it'd be the NBA next season. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Listen, if you're, I think would actually be a good team for him. The Grizzlies. I think he'd be a good Grizzly. I think he'd
probably.
Yeah. Let's just break that story right now. Let's just get it going.
Sources say.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Superhero 18 says, here's a big question. Is Ben Simmons good enough for us to make these kind of lineup adjustments?
What kind of lineup adjustments? So, like what do you mean?
Yeah, like everyone says, like, you gotta like the rotation sucks. Like, you gotta do this, gotta do that. Well, so okay, what are you gonna do? Put in like Vincent Poirier? Is that going to be your big lineup adjustment? Like, and I guess it's not on the team anymore. But the point was, like this team, they're better built than they were previous years, and I think you still trust Daryl Morey, but
absolutely,
like they're just not that deep. They're just simply
not right now. No.
Right now, maybe a year from now, or a year or 2 years from now, when they develop Paul Reed a little bit, when they have they'll have some more naturally grown depth, and then you can make those more, those bigger lineup adjustments. But also, part of the knock against Doc Rivers and part of why he was let go in LA, because he's stubborn. He doesn't make adjustments, and he let Montrezl Harrell out there to get pulverized in the series against the Nuggets. So we'll see if he's learned from those mistakes, but that's just kind of like his MO. He doesn't really do that.
Right.
Now, this is another interesting one. To me, you make lineup adjustments for certain players. We can make lineups for Joel Embiid, lineups for Tobias Harris, but there's a such thing as building around Ben Simmons. This is an interesting point because I think it reminds me of a different discussion. I'm going to take this over to the Houston Rockets, actually. So they have the opportunity to trade James Harden for Ben Simmons and the package of whatever. And they ultimately decide, now we're going to go 4 pick swaps, 4 first-round picks, Avery Bradley, Kelly
Olynyk,
and some other stuff. Like, that might be the worst trade in NBA history.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. You could have had a top 15 player, or you think top 20. I'm going to say top 15 when it comes to Ben, but instead they settled for Kelly Olynyk and Avery Bradley, and they're probably going to waive Bradley soon anyway. So it's
and I get the whole argument, and the point that I'm trying to make here is I get the whole argument of that people will make well, Houston didn't want to be tied in building around Ben Simmons a certain way with the picks, you have more liberty to pick and choose like how you build your team. Okay, but you could also end up picking Andrew Wiggins, Roy Parker, and Thon Maker like 6 times. Like at least
Thon Maker.
at least with like Ben Simmons, you have a defined star. You have in there. So I don't think there's any excuse for that anymore. Like Ben is a flawed star at this moment in his career. I mean, you can't find ways to maximize his play.
And honestly, I think they have done their best with that, like surrounding him with lineups with, Danny Green, Seth Curry, Tobias, and, Joel. And Austin, I feel like you just kind of touched on it earlier when Joel and Ben, Ben needs Joel right now, man, like Ben needs Joel in order to space the floor. So when Ben is on a floor that's spaced and when Joel is out, and they have to rock with Mike Scott and Dwight Howard, the floor is not spaced enough for him to get to the basket. But at the end of the day, though, I feel like with Ben, and Doc kind of touched on it, at this point, he is more of a facilitator at this point than he is like a scorer. And I'm like, because he sets up so many open looks for the rest of the guys on this roster. But at the same time, and I touched on it, he's also got to be able to put the damn ball in the basket when Joel is off the floor. Like you have got to step up and put you're 6'10", and another thing you touched on, Austin, your shooting percentages are down, and he doesn't take jump shots. He's around the freaking rim. Like, why is your percentage down, bro? You are at the rim. It's the true shooting percentage is down. The overall percentage is down. The percentage within 8 feet of the rim is down. It's just like it's confusing. It's confusing. But at the same time, it's also something that we've seen from Ben for the majority of his career. It's just he's a passive dude. It is what it is.
Yeah. I think like for him, like the next step in the development of Ben Simmons. By the way, it wouldn't shock me if like this offseason he ends up like actually putting in like a lot of work to change some things. Because I think now you have like a coaching staff it's like in his ear about development with like Sam Cassell. It wouldn't shock me if like he stays in Philly this summer and if he's not traded and he works with Sam Cassell and he comes back different in some ways next season. But I guess we've fallen for that one before, and I think
everybody has.
I think the tangible improvement is the only thing we trust going forward with him. Now, Tobias Harris again closes another game out this weekend. He's basically like automatic from that mid post. I mean, it's like it's just butter every time. And now I've gotten to the point where it's like, and I wasn't that way with him before in his first season and a half with Philly, but I'm like, okay, he's shooting it. It's going in. I don't even question it. He's automatic from that mid to low post area.
See, I was a big Tobias guy when they made that deal. Like when they made that deal, I was like, yo, that's perfect. That's a really terrific terrific deal. But and we saw it in the first season and a half in Philadelphia. Brett Brown really he didn't know how to use him. Like just Brett continued to kind of put Tobias in a corner at the first half season because of Jimmy. And Jimmy is a guy who you got to put the ball in Jimmy's hands. And you pretty much had Tobias stand in the corner and shoot threes. And then last year, because you lost Jimmy and JJ Redick, Brett was trying to turn Tobias into both Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick reincarnated in one person. So he's literally asking Tobias to take what? How many threes did he take last year? 6 a game. It was something crazy or 5.5 a game, something like that. Like he wanted Tobias to just launch a bunch of threes. And
got like 36, 37%.
Right. And while Tobias can make 3-pointers, obviously he's shooting over 40% from deep this year. You want him taking 3 threes a game, maybe 4. But you're like, no, you can't have him launch a bunch of triples like he's JJ Redick. So I felt like last year they were just asking him to do way too much. Well, I thought he could fulfill the closer spot because I saw him do that in Detroit. I saw him do that with the Clippers under Doc. I saw him do that when he was in Orlando even. Tobias is a guy that he was a closer for those teams for the majority of the time. And I felt like he could do that. But, Just last year, he wasn't able to do it because they were just asking him to do way too much. This year, his role is a little more simplified.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think right now, like, there are times when he'll take 6 or 7 dribbles, but he'll get to his spots and he'll knock it down now.
Right.
I think on those possessions is more about like he's just ultra confident in himself. Like in a way he wasn't last season or the season before. I mean, his free throw percentage for God's sakes is up 9% from last year. He's making 9% more of his free throws. That's insane.
That's huge.
That's literally nuts. And he really, honestly, like, he really wasn't bad last year. He was averaging like roughly 20 points per game.
Right.
But he wasn't efficient while doing it. I think he was shooting 44, 36, 80 from the field, which is not good enough.
Not that great.
No. But I think that's been a really he's held them together more than I think Ben has in a lot of ways this year. Do you believe when Doc says that, like, I view him as a facilitator and I'm not I'm scoring is the least worrisome thing on my list?
No, not like that. Not even, not even a little bit. I know I've talked about this with a bunch of other people, and just like I think he's literally like lying through his teeth, like when he says that. And I think him and Sam are like in his ear telling him like, "Yo, you are 6'10". Get to the basket and just throw it down with a dunk." It shouldn't be this hard. You know what I'm saying? Like it shouldn't be this hard for him to score. And I feel like Doc is definitely going to get frustrated with him at some point. While Ben Simmons is a top 15 player, all-star, an elite defender, I think he should win Defensive Player of the Year this year just because of the way he's locked up the game, some of the game's best scorers. But just offensively though, like, he holds them back sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating for a guy as big and as skilled as he is just to see him like this. It's frustrating, and it's annoying to cover, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. No, it's at there are certain like I was writing last night and I'm thinking to myself, like, how many games have I started out my observations with Ben started the game aggressive and then I never read about it ever again in the game? Because like it's the same story. It happens every game with him. And I actually disagree. JC, as you said, I think he needs some tough love right now from the coaches. I think he's been getting encouragement for years from
way too long.
This isn't me like reporting anything. Like, I get this sense, and I think that the problem was that he's been given too much support and encouragement. I think someone needs to light a fire under him and be like, yo, this is what you're on the verge of. This is like you are holding this team back right now. Like we praise your passing, we praise your playmaking, we praise your defense. This is the reality of the situation for you right now. And like, the reality is, if we don't make it past a certain point in the playoffs, when it gets to nut cutting time, you're the one who's going to be on the chopping block. Not Joel, not anybody else. And like the excuse of, oh, he's young. Like, yes, he is young. 4 years from now, he'll be 28. But that also needs to also mean, okay, but where is the linear progression in his game? What makes me think that there is an end point, or that there's a ceiling to be reached that is higher than what he is? Because he hasn't really done much in the way of offensive improvement, other than like better free throw shooting this year to get there. I mean, he's what the post game has gotten a little better. He still doesn't shoot. I don't know if I believe he'll ever shoot.
No.
And he's still selectively aggressive with the attacking. But I think for a while, like you could make the argument like, oh, his facilitation's great. He's generating how many threes on assists. He locks up this dude. Yeah, that's great and all. But you need to fit it isn't that he can't get to the rim, it's that he's not finishing at the rim right now. And then he's turning away driving lanes by stopping at the nail. That's the thing that at some point you can't overlook anymore. And you can't make excuses for that anymore. And I've always been a guy that sees the upside in Ben Simmons, but there's not much you can say at this point. It's not.
Yeah, it's completely frustrating. Like just from a full standpoint, and I don't care what Doc says. It's going to cost him come playoff time. It is going to absolutely cost him.
Yeah, no, I think I do hold out some encouragement because I think with Joel on the floor, Ben's been better. It isn't like they're expecting to play without Joel Embiid for an entire playoff series, but I do think that there will be games where ultimately they lose by 2 or 3 points, and Ben has 6 turnovers. Ben has, he shoots 2 of 6 from the field. So I think when that happens, if that happens, that's when things are going to get hairy for him in terms of his future in Philly. But we'll see. Now I do want to get over some of the topics here. One is going to be Maxey misses the game last night. I think our first inclination when we see is questionable, is doubtful, out with health protocols, we think, okay, he has it, he's tested positive. And not only that, but where are the rest of the players in all this? Have they been hanging out with him? Are they also positive? What is the status for tomorrow's game, whatever?
Right.
I think there's a hole there where it has to be no. He just had an inconclusive test. We're just holding him out for precaution because we're not sure about the test. Kyle Neubeck reported today that he was cleared to go to Boston and yada yada. He's probable for tomorrow, but I mean, at least in me, there is a sense of does everybody else have it? What happens now? Because if they have guys missing quarantining for a week, they're going to be out of the first place. That might and they're so late in the season. That might be the dagger.
Now, see, I didn't have that thought. Because for me, it was I obviously I was at the arena and I saw Maxey warming up an hour before the game started. So for me, when they said, "Oh, he's out with protocols," I immediately thought, "Okay, yeah, he had an inconclusive test." I didn't have that same thought. I know everybody else began freaking out because, oh my god, and January. We all remember January. They had a majority of their team out for a while because of the protocols. But for me, I really didn't have that thought. I immediately went to the inconclusive test, and then when Doc said after when he confirmed that, and then we got the update today that it was an inconclusive test. He had 2 negative tests. He's fine. You can go to work. It was just all right, whatever. For me, that it was kind of a whatever thing for me. It was all right, okay.
It's gonna happen at some point. Now let's real quick because we are running against the clock here. Paul Reed and Rajon Tucker last night. I walked away very impressed with Paul Reed. I was particularly impressed when he goes glass with the lefty and finishes finishes through foul.
That was a very good play. I liked that one, and then I think it was the same play, but his off the ball movement is something. His cutting off the ball is something that's very impressive to me as well, because there are so many younger players who don't understand off ball movement. A lot of younger players really just want the ball and go one-on-one. And the fact that Reed has kind of been able to make these cuts and move without the ball like that and quickly catch and finish, I think that's been very impressive to me as well when it comes to his game. I didn't expect that coming out of him.
Yeah, and you make a good point. It's funny to me because when it comes down to it, when you simplify basketball all the way down, really off-ball movement is just where is there not someone standing? I shall go stand over there. Oh, he moved? I'm going to go replace his spot.
Right.
Oh, there's a screen here. I'm going to use this screen.
Right.
All it is really just being awareness, but there definitely is a fine art to it and how to leverage off-ball movement to create more open looks. It's how great shooters like J.J. Redick become great shooters,
Right?
When defenses drape them. But number one, I love his energy. I think I think he just is like a bunny rabbit. Just jumps up, he gets offensive rebounds, he's blocking shots, and I think he is very versatile. Once he gets that jumper down and he gets the speed of the game under his shot, he's going to be tough. Rajon Tucker, if there would be a player you compare him to, who is that player?
Somebody athletic. So I'll say a younger Terrence Ross, like when Terrence Ross was just out here like dunking on people.
Okay, I think KJ McDaniels.
I mean, now, like now, Ross's game is a lot more like refined. He shoots threes, like he can knock shots down and stuff. But when he was in Toronto, like all Ross could do was dunk. So like, that's what Tucker kind of reminds me of. A very raw player, just uses his athleticism. You just mentioned KJ McDaniels. That's probably the best comparison for him.
like I don't know about the offense. I don't know where that stands. But Rajon, there's a play where he slid from the elbow to the block, and he got up and just pelted Jonas Valanciunas' shot off the rim.
Yeah,
he's going in for a layup. He thinks he has it, and Rajon comes out of nowhere and just spikes it off the backboard, and it was a goaltend. And I was like, damn, he slid fast and it was agile, and there was no problem for him to do that. It was I was like very taken aback by that. And then he jumps out of the building to fight for like loose balls and offensive rebounds. So I thought like overall we did learn something about what they have in those two. I don't know that Rajon's ever going to get like a real opportunity in Philly just because like the depth that they have at the guard spots now. Like he's behind Maxey, he's behind Shake, he's behind Matisse, he'll be behind, Seth, Danny, whatever. But I do like him. I think he has a chance to make it, if not Philly, elsewhere. I do think Paul Reed, though, is a great find. That's going to be something that if they trade for a star like this summer or whenever, that's going to be a trade chip that they might have, or they'll be able to they'll leverage his growth and development to allocate resources elsewhere in free agency. Ky, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ky_Carlin, and you can also check out my stuff at SixersWire.com.
Find me on Twitter at MBAKrell. We both cover the Sixers for different outlets. I painted lines, as you know. Ky Carlin, Sixers Wire. Catch us before and after every game reporting on this team. Believe it or not, despite all the negativity, they are still tied for first place in the conference in the East. This is their best start in 20 years. So
yeah, like 20 years. Legit.
Yeah. I was 5, I think, the last time that they had this good of a start. But I think 84.
I was 7.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was 7.
That just tells you the landscape of what it's like in this market, that you can be in first place and we're still going to roast you for an entire show. He is Ky Carlin. I am Austin Krell. As always, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a good night. We appreciate you. We'll see you next week, another episode of The Feed to Embiid.